The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Krathzul entered. At 12 feet tall, with obsidian exoskeleton plates covering his massive frame and forearms that could crush steel, the Vraxian warrior was a walking nightmare. His species had been at war with the Coalition for 3 cycles before the recent armistice, and the scars of that conflict, both literal and psychological, were fresh on everyone's minds. The delegates from 100 worlds pressed themselves against the walls, their various forms of fear unmistakable across species lines. The Tesserans' crystalline bodies dimmed. The Orthi pulled their tentacles tight. Even the normally stoic mechanids increased the distance of their hover units. All except one. Dr. Sarah Chen stood exactly where she'd been standing, a small human woman barely reaching 5.5 feet, holding a datapad and wearing the simple gray jumpsuit of the Human Scientific Corps. She didn't flinch as Krathzul's heavy footfalls shook the floor. She didn't avert her eyes from his 4 glowing red ones. "Excuse me," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "You're blocking the holographic projector." The chamber's atmosphere shifted from fear to shock. A Tesseran delegate actually made a sound like shattering glass. Krathzul's head crest flared, a Vraxian threat display, and he leaned down until his fanged mandibles were inches from Sarah's face. "You dare speak to me, human? I dare ask you to move 3 feet to your left so I can finish presenting my research on neutron star formations," Sarah replied, adjusting her glasses. "The session started 10 minutes ago, and I've already lost time to the Orthi delegation's spawning ceremony." For a long moment, nobody breathed. Then Krathzul made a sound, a deep, rumbling vibration that the translation matrix struggled to interpret before settling on amused disbelief. He moved exactly 3 feet to his left. "Proceed, human." That was how it started. Over the following weeks, the council station buzzed with gossip. The human and the Vraxian were seen together in the observation decks, the research libraries, even the commissary. Where other species gave Krathzul a wide berth, Sarah Chen walked beside him, discussing everything from stellar cartography to the fundamental differences in how their species perceived honor. "Your people don't understand," Krathzul said one evening as they watched a binary star system through the massive viewport. "We Vraxians measure worth through strength. I have crushed mountains. I have commanded fleets. I have torn enemy warriors limb from limb in glorious combat. And yet here they look at me like I am broken." Sarah was quiet for a moment, then pulled up a holographic image on her datapad. "This is Earth, my homeworld. In our ancient history, we had warriors too, proud, strong, defined by battle. But we learned something over thousands of years." She zoomed in on various locations. "Here, a warrior became a teacher. Here, a general became a gardener. Here, a soldier became a poet. We discovered that true strength isn't just in what you can destroy, Krathzul. It's in what you can build, protect, and nurture when the fighting stops." Krathzul's crest rippled. Confusion, then contemplation. "You believe I can be more than a weapon?" "I don't believe it." "I know it," Sarah smiled. "You moved 3 feet to the left for a scientist to give a boring presentation. A pure weapon wouldn't have done that." The next day, Sarah invited Krathzul to assist with her research. The other scientists were horrified. A Vraxian warrior, working with delicate instruments and complex mathematics, but Sarah ignored their protests. Krathzul's forearms, designed for war, proved remarkably dexterous with laboratory equipment. His tactical mind, honed through countless battles, grasped complex mathematical patterns with startling speed. His warrior's discipline translated into meticulous attention to detail. "Why do you do this?" Krathzul asked one night, after they'd successfully mapped an entire dark matter filament. "The others fear me, hate me even. My people killed thousands of yours during the war. Yet you treat me as, what word do humans use? Colleague? Friend?" Sarah set down her datapad and looked up at the massive alien who had become both. "Because someone has to be first, Krathzul. Someone always has to be the first to extend a hand across a divide. In human history, it's how we've ended every war, bridged every cultural gap, and built every lasting peace. Not through treaties alone, but through individual acts of trust." She stood and placed her small hand against one of his massive lower arms. "And because I see you. Not Krathzul the weapon, not Krathzul the warrior. Just Krathzul, a person trying to find his place in a galaxy that's moved beyond war." Krathzul's crest fluttered, the Vraxian equivalent of tears. On my world, we have a saying, the strongest fortress is built by former enemies. I never understood it until now. 6 months later, when the council convened to vote on the permanent Vraxian integration treaty, it was Krathzul who stood before them, not as a warrior, but as the co-author of groundbreaking research that would revolutionize faster-than-light travel. And beside him stood Sarah Chen, the human who had dared to see beyond the monster. The vote was unanimous. As they left the chamber together, a young Tesseran delegate approached tentatively. Dr. Chen, Commander Krathzul, I wondered if you might have time to discuss a collaborative project between our peoples. Sarah and Krathzul exchanged a glance, and the massive Vraxian's crest rippled with what she'd learned to recognize as joy. Of course, Sarah said. Someone has to be first, but no one has to be alone. And as word spread through the station, more delegates began to approach. The Orthi, the Mechanids, even the proud Tesserans, each one, inspired by the unlikely friendship between the smallest human and the largest warrior, daring to build bridges of their own. Because that's what humans did best, Sarah thought. Not conquering through strength or overwhelming through numbers, but connecting through courage. The courage to be the first to reach out, the first to trust, the first to see the person behind the monster. And sometimes that made all the difference in the galaxy.